I deal with a lot of these families that have a heroin addict in the family, and they'll tell you, look, we don't want them dying under a bridge, but if we let them come home and we go to sleep, they will come in our room. They'll steal everything we own. They'll take our credit cards out of our wallets. They'll take money, jewelry, and go out and turn it into drugs, because we all know if you're seriously addicted, you're going to do whatever it takes to get that next fix because you're trying to avoid being deathly ill.
Yeah.
So what do we tell those families? And they say, well, I'd rather them be in jail than under a bridge. They can't come home. I don't want them under a bridge where they're going to get beaten, raped, robbed, killed, or whatever. If they're in jail, at least I know where they are. Well, I suppose there's something to that, but giving somebody 3 hots and a cot so mom doesn't have to worry is not the objective of incarcerating people.
Right.
A, they're going to do drugs while they're in jail, and B, the minute they get out, they're going right back into the system they were doing drugs with before. So let's be specific. If we're going to spend the next 50 years focused on something, what are the 3 or 4 priorities that the policy needs to focus on for the next 50 years?
I think the biggest thing is to remove the incentives that kind of proliferate the drug war first off when you're talking about kind of just big government and continue to churn the wheels. And so one of the problems that we have right now, and you see this all throughout the drug war, is that there is an incentivization to continue to make these low-level arrests through either grant programs or whatever, or it makes you look good. The more arrests you have, the more prosecutions you get on these. And we go after the lowest common denominator because these are the easiest cases. And so kind of removing some of those incentives away, saying that good policing doesn't look like the amount of arrests you have. Good prosecuting doesn't mean how many convictions you're getting. And so we have to really divorce those things away from each other. So that's one policy standpoint I think we really need to hit on. And then I think a lot of this is taking a lot of the resources and dollars that we're putting in, just locking people up and trying to find those alternatives and setting up actual statewide healthcare centers that can come together with law enforcement and actually try to bring people out with checks and balances and incentives and carrots and sticks. And we've seen that being effective in minor little, studies and things like that. But doing that on an expanded level, I think is going to be helpful. And then also kind of implementing some of these things in practice in a correctional facility. One of the things that we've been pushing for is, having some sort of medically, assisted treatment within jails and prisons. And because of the lack of correctional officers, and because of the lack of resources, or really the desire to even do any of this stuff, people try to get off or wean drugs in jail in this horrific setting, when we should be trying to kind of help them bridge that if we're going to have them in this carceral area. So I think that's something that we really, really need to start looking on. You've seen a lot of effectiveness in reducing overdose deaths, reducing addiction post-release, if you're able to kind of tackle that problem while they're incarcerated, if we're going to continue to incarcerate people for these types of things. And so those are, I think, the main ones that I'm looking at. And then a lot of it's with social stigma with addiction still. I think there's still propaganda and a villainization of people that utilize drugs. And this is a behavior that we don't want, but that doesn't mean people are evil if they go through that. And so I think we're slowly seeing, Dr. Phil, one of the things that's been actually, a positive of kind of the opioid epidemic and fentanyl epidemic is that it has been hitting different social areas. It's been hitting rural places. So people that were kind of at a distance from the drug war for a long, long time are now seeing it face to face and understand, well, that's Tommy, our neighbor's kid. He's not a bad kid. He's a screw up here and there, and he messed up here and he's gotten into some stuff. Or I know Bob lost his job, or I lost my job, or I got strung out on opiates, with a busted knee, and now, my doctor's unprescribed. Like, you kind of see it firsthand, and I think that changes people a little bit. And so reducing that stigma, I think will be a major aspect, and we're slowly starting to see that. But those are kind of the biggies from a policy perspective that I could see is much more investment as a healthcare issue than a criminal justice one, and removing those incentives for the criminal justice system to continue to proliferate off this.
Clayton, what do you think people need to hear that are on drugs that's going to get them to be drawn towards some kind of help instead of hide from people that are out there trying to help? What do you think people need to hear that are on the drugs?
Man, that's a tough one. But I think they need to know that it's people that actually care about them and there's people out there that want to see them a functioning member of society. So I don't really know where to begin. I think like even I have people in my family, like you don't know, you want them to get the help. It's like you said, you bring them into your house and they could be good for max maybe 2 weeks before stuff starts turning up missing. And everybody's gonna turn on them, and that's why they're out on the street. That's why they're cast out. But I think that there's people out there that, want to see them do well. But from what I hear, they got to hit that bottom. They gotta hit rock bottom before they even start seeking help, or they got to get to such a low point that, it's sad that that's the way it is, but that's what I hear. So I think the best thing people can do that aren't on drugs is be there and help guide these people when they're trying to come back into society, and not just look at them like they're the lowest piece of trash.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's trying to show that they have value and that they can provide something, and actually showing that in action. This always sticks out to me when I visited a prison. There was a guy that was in and out of it. It was either a string of robberies or larceny, but a lot of it was drugs to kind of keep that habit going. And he finally got enrolled in a class while he was in prison, and he said something, and the instructor, he said like, "Oh, you're really smart." And he's like, "That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that." And he had been like a model inmate since then. And I think he's released at this point, unless something else had happened. But I do think it is that value aspect that people don't see their value once they get into this process, and they're living day in and day out just trying to keep this fix. And so can we provide you with some value, either through family reunification, through maintaining and earning, living accommodations, either through work or treatment and things like that. I think earning those types of things, not only does it kind of bring you out and give you that incentive to stay within this better environment, but it brings pride to you. It brings something like there's nothing more prideful than doing well at your job, being able to buy a house or buy that new car, and like striving for those goals and earning them. You see it all the time with like people that win the lottery. They get millions and millions of dollars, and then they're bankrupt and on their ass like later because they didn't earn it. They didn't actually do that blood, sweat, and tears. Like Clayton, how amazing was it to probably open for Chappelle or win last time? When you had done all those hours before, going into shitty comedy clubs across the country, doing opening acts, all that open mic stuff, like to finally like hit that point and peak, that's what matters. Like that, and then you're like, okay, like I've made it. Like, and that means so much more than like, here's your award, or you're playing the Forum tonight, you didn't earn shit. Like it's a bigger diff. Yeah,
And with you saying that, I think the thing that I would tell people that are addicted is kind of learning from Dr. Phil just now while we've been sitting here is figure out what you want to do. Figure out what you want to do, where you want to be. And it's so many people who have came from addiction that have gone on to be some of the most prolific writers, actors, musicians. All types of beautiful art has been created from people who, if we just looked at them in one point of their life, would be viewed as an addict. So yeah, find something. Because comedy was definitely that for me.
I think you guys are hitting on it spot on, because I've talked to so many hardcore addicts, and the first thing that jumps out at me is they think they're living the life that they're worthy of. If they're prostituting themselves, or they're living on the street and they haven't bathed for a month, they've got head lice or whatever it is, you talk to them and you listen to their internal dialogue. If you can get them to tell you what they're telling themselves, you don't ask yourself why they're doing it. You ask yourself why not, because they're telling themselves that they're worthless human beings, and that if they overdose, so what? It's no big loss to their family, to society, or whatever. Anytime you start telling somebody, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, defensiveness goes up really high. But if you approach them, like both of you just said it, if you approach them from the standpoint of saying, hey, I love you, I care about you, you deserve better. I want treatment for you, I want help for you, because you deserve it. You deserve a better life. You deserve this help. And then the focus has to be on making them feel like they're worthy of receiving that help. I can't tell you how many times I've had addicts sitting on stage with me, and I stop and say, let me ask you something. You're here right now with me on this stage, and you have the undivided attention of my team over the last week and me now and all these people here. How do you feel about that? And you would think they would say, fortunate. I feel like I'm really, and their response invariably is, I don't deserve it.
Right.
I'm not worthy. I'm sitting here with you, and there are 10,000 people that want to be in this chair. I'm not worthy of being here. Somebody else should be here instead of me. And somebody else your team should have been working with. And you're offering me this amazing rehabilitation opportunity and all this professional help, and I don't deserve it. It's clear to me that the fundamental threshold you have to cross over is they have to decide, I am worthy of it, and I'm going to live up to that. If we'd spent 50 years helping these disenfranchised, marginalized, no goal, no passion people to feel worthy, that they can require more of themselves and they deserve more of this life, I think we'd be a lot further along than we have been arresting them and locking them up for half an ounce of this or a half a gram of that. If we'd taken all that time and effort and helped them feel better about who they were, then you treat yourself better.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that.
No, it's exactly right. And, just like any war, to be effective, you have to essentially turn your population through propaganda against this enemy. And that's what we've done, just vilify this population and made them seem like they're lesser than. And that's been by practice. That's not, that's not a flaw in the system. That's been by design. So that they're able to increase sentences. So you can do all these things with civil asset forfeiture, where you take people's stuff without convicting them of a crime, where you're able to utilize a no-knock warrant, essentially deprive people of these liberties because of this war, because drug addicts are bad and they're villains. They are the enemy of this war. And we have done that over and over again, rather than saying, this is a problem, this is some behavior that we don't want in our society. But the way we get out of this is love, empathy, and value in these people around the other way, just like anything else. I mean, think about, beating your kids, spanking your kids, doing all these things to children, we would not accept. Like, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science to understand. It's not anything different than what you're saying, just how you do parenting or being a teacher, or anything else, just teaching people how to be people and providing value in their lives. That's what we're supposed to do as a society. And we have utterly failed this, population.